We have Mr. Mir Muhammad Ali, an IAS of Kerala cadre of 2011 batch. Many of you would know that his program Satyameva Jayate around teachers and students and how to help them to identify and respond to misinformation in Kerala has been a massive success. He has trained and taught about 80,000 children across 2,200 schools when he was the DC of Kannur. He is now director of Kerala State Suchitwa Mission. We have another IITian, Ashish Tiwari, an IPS of 2012 batch, and he's a well-known face on television because he is SSP of Ayodhya. He is an IITian turned banker and has done remarkably well as an IPS officer. During CAA protest, he created 200 WhatsApp groups to fight this misinformation menace. He has won many awards, including FICCI Smart Police Officer. A Smart Police e-app initiated by him has been one of the pioneering interventions by him. Among others, he has come in a lot of community policing initiatives, including green groups to empower women. We also have very, very bright and young IPS officer of 2013 batch, Maharashtra, Harsh Poddar, who is SP Beed now in Maharashtra. He's another Shivning scholar we have the privilege of hosting this evening. He's a law graduate from the Oxford, and he has served in Nagpur, Malegaon, and Beed, a very, very unique mix of rural and urban population. He has won FICCI Award, and he addressed Harvard India Conference in 2019 on fake news. So glad to have you here, Harsh. We have another bright officer, Rahul Srivastav, who is serving now as SP of Jhansi. He's been credited with digital transformation of UP Police by launching the UP Police on all social media platforms. Much of what you see today of UP Police, perhaps one of the best in the country today, is credit to Rahul, JNU alumni, and a topper in political science in graduation. He has worked very hard on fake news as CTSP. We will get to hear from him. He has initiated a lot of very good interventions. And of course, last but not the least, the most important, Pankaj Jain is the founder of SM Hoaxslayer, one of the first in the country to start busting myths that the 2000 note didn't have a chip, right? In an interview to BBC, he had said that the inspiration to bust hoaxes were caused by the stupid rumors that he heard from the chachas and the mamas and the dada and the dadis on this. Now, thank you all very much for joining. We have many participants, very bright participants joining from all over the country. Bureaucrats India, this webinar is also available live on Bureaucrats India Facebook page, on our Grey Matters Communications Facebook page, and SPs of India and DCs of India. Now, we have a fine mix of experts who are going to tell us about what is the way forward. Because one thing that has traveled faster than Corona has been the menace of fake news. Now, how do we deal with it? While Corona will go away in some time, I'm afraid that fake news will continue to haunt us for a long time. And therefore, we have a fine mix of experts who shall share perspective about their first-hand experience of dealing with this menace, and of course, what are the ways ahead as we go along. Now, I'll request each of the panelists to please give an opening few remarks for 2 to 3 minutes, and then we get into a question and answer session. Audience will also start asking questions in about 30 minutes from now. Audience, request you to start posing your questions after 30 minutes when we have a first round of discussions. Kiran, can we begin with you? Kiran has his Shivening report, which he's contemplating. I'm encouraging him to turn it into a book because that will be very relevant, especially for the policy making and awareness program. So, Kiran, over to you, please.
Thank you, Navneet, and it's always a pleasure to be part of such webinars where, I mean, Corona has at least started the culture of webinars, which otherwise people don't bother to attend all this. But anyways, as we say, falsehood flies and the truth comes limping after it, so that when men come to be undeceived, it's too late. Justice over, and the telltale had its fest. This is what, not me saying this, Jonathan Swift had said it in the 18th century, long back, 3 centuries before. So the main concept when we talk about fake news, this is not a new phenomenon. Earlier we had, we might have heard about this one fine Sunday morning, some newspaper in the US had a news regarding the life in moon. And people did believe that. It's in the 1835. People did believe that. It took some time for people to say, no, it's not like that. So earlier it was a print media, but later when the print media had editorial controls, it had people looking after what is being printed, what is not. So there was always a control mechanism. There was always an authentication mechanism and always a control mechanism. But now in the age of the 5-inch screens that you have and super fast internet, everybody is a journalist. It all started with the culture of citizen journalists. It's pretty good, but everybody is a journalist and people just have the thing to forward everything that he or she gets without even verifying. And we have lots of groups in which we are part of a family groups, family WhatsApp groups, college WhatsApp groups, school WhatsApp groups. And especially in those family WhatsApp groups, if some message comes, if not you, we may be aware, but a lot of people who are not aware, people think it as the ultimate truth. It might seem to be a joke, but it's a fact. You can check it with anybody at home. When you might also be getting a lot of messages. If you ask him, do you really believe in what has been sent? The corona के लिए आप सुबह ये खाइए, दोपहर को ये खाइए. It's scientifically not proved. If you ask the person who sent you all this, he will say कि नहीं ये तो है, होता है, हमें कहाँ से मिला? तो WhatsApp में फलाना ने भेजा. So when WhatsApp has become a university, we joke about WhatsApp universities. And going ahead, when you speak about fake news and how it spreads, it spreads like air. Believe me, it spreads like air. It's when you send a WhatsApp message to a group, now WhatsApp has done a lot of work in controlling the spread. Like they have initially cut down the forward messages to just 5. Now again back to 1, and very frequently forwarded messages. Yes, these are good steps, but when you put it in a group, what if you send the message to one particular group and there are 100 people in the group and 100 people send it to another 100 people? Within a matter of few seconds, it reaches maybe thousands of people. We are a huge country where, and again, this mobile phone, the 5-inch screen that you have is a very, earlier when the news came up, it used to come in English or in Hindi in the vernaculars. It used to take some time to get printed. TV, yes, it used to take some time, but now you can make a very misguiding video in a couple of seconds, use a voiceover to do it in a vernacular, and then spread it across. Twitter has a lot of influencers. If some of the influencers, like Rahul is one of the influencers. If Rahul presses retweet something, it's a news. And it's upon him, he has to take, and he is doing so to great amount of care to ensure that he doesn't retweet anything false. It again puts on unnecessary responsibilities on people like maybe Ashish and Rahul, who have quite a lot of following on Twitter. I'm not that lucky enough. So there is a paradigm shift in the 20th and 21st centuries where the ecosystem dominated by the print and electronic media increasingly shifted to digital, mobile, and social media dominated ecosystem. You'll be surprised to note that we are a mobile first nation. Most of us as in the most of our countrymen and women, read news on WhatsApp and Facebook rather than in newspapers and on the radio and on the TV. People rely on social media for the news, especially in the villages where people don't know how to use Facebook. They all will be, they all would have heard about WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is a very WhatsApp could be any social media app. Nothing against picking up one particular social media app, but it could be anything. So we are talking about the spread. The spread happens in this way, which we all know, but we unknowingly do all this. One click on your forward button without verifying what the content of the message is, it is damaging. And it's not just among the people who are unaware, it's among us. You get a message regarding some, for example, lockdown. There were a lot of rumors about lockdown. There were a lot of rumors about corona. There were a lot of rumors about another pandemic having started. There was another rumor about WHO having stated something. A couple of days back, there was a news roaming around of some doctor having prescribed some medicines on his letterpad, which the doctor himself later claimed that somebody has misused his letterpad. It was not his handwriting. And it was being circulated among the groups of very educated people, among intellectuals, even among doctors. And forget about not to say anything about the normal public who just believes in all these, because people are the 3-4 things that people be. One, you have a panic. 2, you are afraid. 3, it gets into a state of paranoia. And whatever solace you get, whether on social media or through word of mouth, you tend to believe that. And especially from this friends and family and friends WhatsApp groups, it's a very trusted source. You get a lot of messages on those. 70% of it is, I won't use the word crap, but 70% of it is unverified and not true, which is just a forward, but people do believe that. People might have seen in districts when some messages come, because when I was doing my fellowship, this was one of my topics of discussion that I did speak to Mir and also regarding this, because the way out could be, as these the co-panelists would say, is educating the public, because we have seen enough of pandemics. We have seen enough of washing our hands. We have been using sanitizers to wash our hands, but are we using something to sanitize our 5-inch screens? More than corona, the infodemic is attacking us. A lot of information, most of us misinformation, has been attacking us. So we must have mechanisms to kind of avoid that. Only thing is that we have to be in control over the data that we use. The way out is, when we were kids, we were taught to cross the road. First look left, look right, and ensure that no vehicle is coming, and then cross. But did someone teach us how to use the information highway? No. So this is one way, the educating the people that these gentlemen are doing is one way where which we can do this. And there are multiple mechanisms. We have our legal mechanisms which are strong enough, but again, will it stand the test of law? Because these are evolving fields. As we speak, as we are speaking, we'll be getting 100 odd fake news in a few seconds that as we speak. Check your WhatsApp groups. You would have got 100 messages, which 70% of them would be fake. People have, because India did a good job during this election, 2019 elections, wherein the PIB did fact checking and a lot of mechanisms to control the spread of the fake news. So whether we should penalize fake news or criminalize fake news at one instant, it's a question to ponder over, because you cannot criminalize information. It affects your freedom of speech, because the difference between a falsity and a fake news is very thin. If I believe that sun rises in the west and I tell others that sun rises in the west, it's not blasphemy, because I do sincerely believe that sun rises in the west. It is my ignorance. I don't verify, I just push it out. So I cannot be penalized just for saying that.
Right.
But falsity, I knowingly push ahead something, knowing that it is false and it is malicious. So that is where the fine definition in 505 IP section of IPC comes in. We can of course use that section, invoke sections of IT Act. But again, more than penalizing, it's more of a collaborative approach. People should know about this. Most people don't know that such a such an infodemic is hitting us. So in my opinion, people should know that such a thing exists. A lot of research available, but how will we take this to the common man? Of late, I saw a very beautiful video of in which Virat Kohli, Alia Bhatt, and the likes, a few of them acted in this. So they were essentially saying not to believe in false news. They were saying something and then say, don't believe in false news. Such narratives of, if not celebrities, but those people who have a reach, those influencers, they can put in a lot of effort in doing that. People do listen to us. Somebody has been typing TikTok video, Matkar, and all those things. Yes. TikTok is another thing which we have not ventured into. More of rural India uses TikTok. People are TikTok celebrities. This is one way. We have to use all mechanisms available to control the spread. So that's what I have to say, Hope.
All right. Thank you. Educating the public and telling them, teaching all of us how to control data that we have.
If not control, we need to know that such a thing exists.
Right.
The awareness of the existence is important.
Excellent. Kiran, thank you so much. Shows that you did a great job of this while at the Shivning. Now, somebody who has done it on the ground, Mir Ali, an IAS officer, and as a DC of Kannur, he did a fabulous job, which got many accolades across the world. He was written about. And what better opportunity than to hear it from the horse's mouth. Mir, over to you, please.
Thanks, Navneet. Thanks for the opportunity to interact with everybody and share this platform with such illustrious colleagues. I'm going to start off, I'm going to build on what Kiran sir said about the information era that we live in. So I was posted as collector of a district called Kannur, which is in the northern part of Kerala between 2016 and 19. And this was a very important phase in the evolution of fake news because 2016 is when data started being made available very cheap. So till 2015, when data was expensive, we would think twice before sending an image to somebody or sending a video. But once data became cheap with the launch of Geo and all of that, videos started going around much faster. So during my experience, the first instance in 2016, around September, October, we came across the first instances of kidnapping rumors. Images going around saying that people are getting into the district and they are kidnapping kids or attempting to kidnap them. A lot of rumors about kidnapping, but no actual kidnappings took place. And then we finally had to issue a clarification. So that was like one type of rumor, which around 2-3 years later spread across the rest of the country, wreaking havoc with many lives. We were lucky that in Kannur, there were no lives lost. 1 year later, we saw another aspect of fake news, which I found more serious than a kidnapping rumor because it affected the health prospects of about 5 lakh children. 2017, August, September, Government of India started what was called the measles rubella vaccination campaign. And each district had targets to vaccinate all children between the age of 9 months and 15 years old. What happened during that time is a lot of rumors and a lot of fake news, misinformation started going around saying that this vaccination is actually harmful. Harmful was one. Another one said it doesn't work. Another one said that if given to the young girls, they would not be able to deliver babies sometime in future. It would affect, it would prevent them from being mothers. And there were all sorts of misinformation that happened. It became impossible for us to vaccinate children. So it was during that time that we had to figure out a way on through which we could convince parents, convince children to take up vaccination given by the government. So we started talking to parents about it, and we found that, Kiran sir just said, people receive something online, they take it as the truth. And when we spoke to parents about it, they said that we've been getting all these forwards, etc. And here's what was interesting. Every doctor in the district was saying vaccination is good, you should take it. All these parents would want their children to become doctors. But for medical decisions, they did not want to take the advice of the doctor. They would prefer to take the advice of a random forward on WhatsApp. And then one day, through pure chance, we walked into a school and we started talking to the kids and asking them, why aren't you accepting vaccination from the doctors who are here? And they repeated, they didn't tell us that our mother or father told us not to take vaccination. They said that vaccination is harmful, it is not effective, it would help us, it would make things worse for us in future. We would not be able to bear children. in the future if we have this vaccination. Everything that the parents were receiving on WhatsApp, the children were learning that. And so we talked to them and we explained to them, we gave them a number of analogies, examples, and then we told them, we even guilt tripped them and said that, your teacher is saying you should take vaccination. Would your teacher want to actively harm you? Don't you trust your own teachers? We asked these questions when the teachers were available in the presence of the students. After doing this sort of campaign, we found that in the schools where we conducted these exercises, the vaccination rates went up. That means that wherever we talked to children, the children were able to understand this and they were ready to take up vaccination, whereas parents were not so easy to work with. So that was the sort of, those were the circumstances under which we formed this program called Satyameva Jayate, which is not a hard name to take because it is, after all, the national motto. And even our fundamental duties, Article 51AH of the Constitution, calls on every citizen, says it's your fundamental duty to develop a scientific temper, a spirit of inquiry and reform. So based on this inspiration, we started a program where we trained around 150 to 200 teachers. We gave them a presentation, and Kerala, because Kerala has all government school classrooms are smart classrooms, they were able to take the presentation as we gave them and then present it before the students. Around 80,000 to 1 lakh students were trained in this process. And during this coaching, during this training program, which lasted, say, just 2 hours, some of the questions that we tried to answer to them was, what is fake news? What is misinformation? Why do we need to be aware about misinformation? Who makes fake information? How is it empowered? How do we empower those who make fake news? And more importantly, we sort of gave them a protocol on how to respond to fake news. So sometimes when you're on a family WhatsApp group and people are sharing misinformation left, right, and center, what are the words you can use to raise a question? We also taught them all to ask the question, what is the source? Every time they get a piece of information, very politely, you don't have to going and checking what is true is the next step. But the first and most basic step is to just hint to anybody who's sharing misinformation that, hey, what is the source? Where are you getting this from? Can you please share that with me? So that there's no friction that is involved. And then we showed them around 15, 20 examples of misinformation and how they could be fooled by it. So this was a program that we started. It was extremely effective. And after that, we felt that, there was a general, when we even spoke to parents after the program was over, the children had then passed on this information to that parents, and combined with some enforcement that was done against a few people who had forwarded fake messages, this sort of created an atmosphere. I wouldn't say that everyone stopped believing in misinformation after that, but the good thing that happened was there was an active public conversation around misinformation. And no child would be able, suppose one of these children gets into trouble for sharing something particularly harmful in future, that child will not look back and say, hey, nobody told me that I should not share misinformation. That doubt was erased from the minds of the kids. Among the countries who have done great work on this, if anyone is interested, you can just go online and Google Finland fake news. So the government of Finland started this campaign around 2016-17, where they started educating kids about media literacy. And there was a survey conducted sometime in 2018-19, which checked which country in Europe is most resistant to fake news. And in that survey, Finland came out at the top. So as of now, among the countries that have been studied, Finland holds the, you can say it holds the first place for being the most resistant to fake news, which doesn't mean people aren't making fake news. It means that people are sharing misinformation, but the impact of that misinformation is very low. Whereas if you come to our country, we would find that the impact of misinformation is quite high, which incentivizes people to share more and more. So like Kiran sir had mentioned in his talk, one way is obviously the enforcement way, which I'm sure there are colleagues who are going to talk about it. But one more way I feel, from my perspective, you need to have a public conversation around this. People should question more often, maybe just do their fundamental duty. You don't have to get into a fight with everybody, but politely asking people to share reliable information, politely requesting them not to share fake news again, not keeping quiet, not keeping silent in the face of information happening on misinformation on a large scale. That's a good place to start. And if we make this a sort of habit, for example, I like to give the example of smoking. There was a time when smoking was really cool and people used to hang out just to smoke, and if you didn't smoke, you would be left out of the group. But now if you look at it, thanks to an extensive public campaign through movies, through media, through public culture, it's come to a point where if you want to smoke, you have to go to the corner. People don't want to hang out with you if you're a smoker. So I think similarly, over a period of time, by trying to change our public culture, which is obviously a long-term process, it's not an immediate solution, I think we could create a culture where sharing misinformation online, not verifying and just sharing blatant lies, is something that is socially looked down upon. And I think that's where we should sort of move. So I think I'll conclude with that right now. I'll be happy to take questions later. Thank you.
Very nice, Mir. That was a nice perspective and a nice set of recommendations. We shall have more to hear from those who are doing it day in and day out. Change the public culture, much like we did with smoking, and question people. I think these are very, very powerful statements. Harsh has been, besides being a law graduate, he has been one of those who has actively monitored. All the police officers today have had very, very illustrious stint in which they have managed. Harsh, we'll be happy to hear from you as to how you did that rescue of the Maligaon. You rescued 3 people from being lynched, and a whole lot of other initiatives that you have taken during the stints from Nagpur to Beed to Maligaon. Harsh, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll begin by mentioning what a privilege and an honor it is to share the screen with so many illustrious seniors. I have had the opportunity to follow many of their work, and it has informed mine as well. Because this is the opening remarks, I would first like to actually frame the problem that enforcement agencies face, both at macro as well as a micro level, with regard to misinformation and fake news. And then I can come to the Maligaon incident. That's fine in the opening remarks itself. I would like to begin this discourse by mentioning the fact that we are the world's largest democracy. In fact, it's the largest democracy that even human history has ever seen. And of course, everyone is aware that fake news is a massive evil, and it's something that's percolating in society and causing a huge level of detriment. But having said that, I'd also like to offer an alternate perspective that I just want to tease the audience's mind and perception with. The fact that, you know, when you're a democracy, there is only a certain extent to which the state can actually come in and deal with public expression. The right to freedom of information, the right to freedom of speech and expression, these are clearly enshrined in the Constitution of India. Article 19 deals with all of them. And from time to time, the Apex Court has further broadened them to now including the right to information. So the question that we need to ask ourselves, you know, before we go on this rampant war against fake news alone, is where in a democracy are you actually going to draw the line between muzzling and the eradication of fake news? We have to remember that we as a country and we as a society have a long tradition of creativity, of humor, satire, literature, all of which require a certain degree of creative imagination, so to speak. So what I mean to say is that in 2020, we also have to be cognizant about the fact that when you are a functioning, living, breathing democracy, and indeed an example for the entire world, you also have to know where to draw the line in the sand, where it becomes from becoming a fight against fake news, it becomes a totalitarian state that is intent on muzzling any form of expression. This is something that requires very concerted thought, not just on the part of the judiciary or the executive or the legislature, but on the part of society. That brings me nicely on to my second point, which is the fact that one unfortunate thing about this entire anti-fake news drive that we see in the latter part of times that we are living in is the fact that it has become a monolithic entity. We treat fake news as one big entity that exists, and it has to be fought with using the same strategies, the same methods. In my opinion, that is a massive mistake. Fake news actually is a very graded phenomenon. There are certain types of news that, though patently false, might be protected by creative license. There are other types that could literally just be harmless white lies. There are other types that actually posit scientific information in a different way. And as you move down this pyramid, you finally come to a certain type or a certain category of fake news that has a very, very maleficent effect upon society. It could be in the form of riots, it could be in the form of misinformation regarding health, it could be misinformation regarding communal relations, etc., etc. Now, the point that government agencies and enforcement agencies in particular need to bear in mind is that our response to fake news cannot be uniform. We have to be cognizant of the fact that there are various types, and each type requires a certain response that's particularly calibrated to that particular type. When we are speaking about the police or any law enforcement agency, I want to underline before the audience that the subject matter that the police deals with is not all types of fake news that exist in the room. It deals with a very specific category of fake news that has very, very, very impactful ramifications on society, and in a very, very negative way. The other point that I want to draw out as a problem for law enforcement agencies is that fake news dissemination clearly is an international phenomenon. It carries through the air, as one of my senior colleagues just mentioned. Yes, of course, it carries through the air, but it also carries through agents that are actually universally present across the globe. We have to remember that the principle of sovereignty of countries actually prohibits us in many ways from extracting information from these. So for instance, if you're talking about, say, WhatsApp, or if you're talking about Facebook or TikTok or Twitter, there is only a certain extent to which law enforcement agencies can actually backtrack the source of that news. And this is a massive obstacle that still we haven't been able to overcome within administration, and something that we need to deal with in coming times. Sir, do you want me to deal with the Malegaon incident or Malegaon itself at the moment, or should I save it for my substantives? How do you prefer it?
You can do it. It's going fine. You can do it now.
Okay, I was posted as the additional SP of a place called Malegaon. You've probably heard this name in very notorious contexts, in the context of riots, in the context of bomb blasts, etc. It is a city that is famously difficult to police for a very large number of reasons, but not getting into those and just trying to stick to the fake news initiative. I would like to dwell a little bit on the history of Malegaon, and gradually it will become clear to you why it is relevant. Now, this is a city that is among the world's top most densely populated urban conglomerates in the world. In fact, it's number 10. It has about 1 million people within actually just within 30 square kilometers. That's like 30,000 people within 1 square kilometer. That's the kind of density that we are dealing with. If you look at the history of this place and the demography, it is approximately 76% Muslim, and the rest of it is Hindu, and as well as SC/ST communities. Now, the history of the demography is such that these people, primarily the Muslim population of this city, actually migrated out from the Awadh region of Uttar Pradesh around 1857. That is when the British took over Awadh, which is central Uttar Pradesh. They migrated out because they were weavers. They didn't have the markets because the feudal aristocracy of that region was destroyed. So they started moving towards the port towns of India, which is Calcutta, Mumbai, etc. And they started to settle along waterfronts. And Malegaon is one of these places. Now, the way this is translated in modern times is in fact, over the past century, is the fact that you have a town or a very large town actually with a concentrated population of one community, which is surrounded by the native Marathi Hindu population on all sides. Now, as it has occurred, despite the fact that this has gone on for so long, Malegaon continues to speak Hindi or a mixture of Urdu and various UP dialects rather than Marathi. So you have a situation where you have a Muslim majority population on all sides surrounded by a Hindu population, and there hasn't been much cultural exchange between these populations. Now let's fast forward a little bit, and I'll come to how fake news has worked here. In 2001, when the Twin Tower attacks had happened, Malegaon has a very large Jama Masjid. some pamphlets immediately after 26/11 were being distributed outside the Jama Masjid. These pamphlets were in Urdu, which is a language that a large part of the Hindu population doesn't comprehend. A rumor went around at this point of time that these pamphlets were actually in support of terrorism as well as the Al-Qaeda. That prompted some small skirmishes between both communities, and before you knew it, it broke out into a massive riot in the city that lasted for 2 weeks, in which 13 people were killed. This was the first instance of fake news which Malegaon faced violently. After that, in 2006 and 2008, Malegaon faced huge bomb blasts that took place. And now I come to my own part of the story, which was in 2018, at a time when the entire country was facing rumors about organized gangs that were involved in kidnapping children and then frisking him away for the organ trade. In June 2018, at about 11 in the night, to cut a long story short, a family of 5 people was surrounded by a mob of approximately 2,000 people who were intent on lynching these people. Now, what was different about this family of 5 people? These 5 people spoke Marathi. They did not speak Hindi. They were dressed in a manner that is not commonly seen in the area of Malegaon. In Malegaon, typically women tend to wear burqas or they wear salwar kameezes. The ladies in this group of 5 people, of which one was a 3-month-old baby, were dressed in saris. So there was a stark difference culturally that was visibly available between them. For the crowd to believe that these were outsiders, you could recognize them from that. And the fact that they didn't speak their language prompted them to believe that these could be kidnappers, and they attacked them on that ground. We carried out an operation that lasted for about 3 hours. Forces were sent in phases. There was heavy stone pelting on police forces that were actually sent. A vehicle was attacked. Policemen were attacked. But despite that, thankfully, by the end of it, we were able to rescue all 5 of these people safe from the mob. That's besides the point. Let's actually come to the administrative lessons that we can learn from Malegaon's experience about the manner in which fake news works. And I would like to foreground that by saying that the reason why this is important is I began by saying that government agencies need to be able to identify the types of fake news or rumors that can be the most dangerous and then counteract them. So lessons that we can learn from here is, firstly, Malegaon was ripe for a fake news outbreak because of the kind of fear psychosis that existed in the population there. Imagine yourself a citizen of this city. Within the span of the last 20 years or so, less than 20 years, you have seen major communal riots, you have seen bomb blasts that have ripped apart and killed several families, several people. Imagine the kind of fear that must subsist in the minds of the citizenry of this place. So it's already a scared population that is existing, and in its living memory has had incidents of terrible violence that makes it susceptible to fake news to begin with. Secondly is what I already highlighted earlier, which is that this is a migrant population that is surrounded by a native population with little cultural exchange between them. So the prospect or the possibility of suspicion that can exist between these populations is pretty high in this case. Thirdly, mob psychology. Mob psychology is important because very often, because fake news is something that by definition affects a very large number of people, people can actually hide behind the mob, both physically as well as in the virtual world. So when you have a riot of about 2,500 people trying to lynch a family of just 5, people who would not normally indulge in violence suddenly feel that they can actually give vent to their frustrations, their fears that they have accumulated for over 2 decades, and hide behind this mob and be able to, be able to carry out this kind of monstrosity. And last is population density, because I already highlighted at the start that this has about 1 million people packed in 30 square kilometers. It's very easy for a mob to collect. So the lessons that exist for a government agency here is that when you have this combination of factors, there is a huge potency of fake news not remaining just fake news, but turning out into a massive law and order outbreak that threatens lives, property in every way. The manner in which we responded to this was by carrying out an anti-fake news campaign. Like any law enforcement agency in the 21st century, there were two components to this. One that was awareness based, the other that was more execution and enforcement based. With regard to awareness based measures, we actually issued authorized videos with regard to this kidnapping. A lot of things that happens in these smaller towns or villages is that people don't have a credible source to actually go to. In an urban population, you are acquainted with the use of Google. You are acquainted with websites like Boom Live or Hoax Slayer, etc. But a rural population isn't. They tend to trust the government, especially in a state like Maharashtra, where there's a very high public credibility for government institutions. So we issued videos. We had multiple appeals from government agencies. We also had pamphlets being issued. These pamphlets had to be accessible, so they were in Urdu as well as in local dialects of Marathi. We had meetings in rural settings in villages where people were made aware about the phenomenon of fake news in cadences that they actually understood. We referred to texts such as the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, about how fake news has actually inhabited Indian population for millennia. That makes it easier for them to understand. And then we also actually recruited religious institutions like mosques, temples, where people gather on a large basis, where people who had a religious influence on these people, imams, maulvis, pandits, etc., who could actually address them about these rumors. Then I come to the second component, which was the enforcement-based component. The enforcement-based component requires a tad bit more intelligence, which is that you actually have to have a great ground network where you can use patterns to assess what kind of fake news is percolating where and what its ultimate ramification on law and order could be. So you need to change your patrolling routes, the kind of police presence that you have, deploying fixed points, patrolling routes. These have to be changed in response to the kind of news that is moving around in a certain area. So you have to have a sieve in your head, which can able to distinguish fake news that has a law and order repercussion and those that may not. And the second thing that we found particularly efficacious was the registration of offenses. The assurance that criminal action will be taken against people who disseminate fake news that, mind you, can have a larger repercussion on law and order. It could be communal, it could be inflammatory, etc. That assurance, that fear, that deterrence actually has a massive impact in being able to curtail and control this news. So this was a basic case study of how we dealt with a certain type of fake news, which is possibly the one of greatest urgency, the ones that can cause major law and order ramifications in Malegaon. I'd be happy to take questions and even feedback on this. I'll come to other components in my substantive address. Thank you so much.
Sure. All right, Harsh, thank you very much for that very, very elaborate, expansive. For want of time, I will go straight to our next speaker, Ashish Tiwari. Ashish Tiwari ji, over to you. Your experiences, where do you look, we are headed, and your recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, Navneet, for having me on the webinar. My experience with fake news is mostly based on my working on the ground, and this is my 4th district as SP. And right now, the charge which I'm holding is as SP Ayodhya, which is a sensitive charge. We have seen over the last 1 year a lot of things like Ram Janmabhoomi judgment and CA protest, and now the COVID situation which is going on. So the fake news is playing a very big part in these events, and we actually did two-pronged approach to counter this fake news menace. One was the awareness, and second was the enforcement. Now, rightly pointed out by the earlier speaker that fake news can have multiple dimensions and it has multiple gradations also. So we should have different strategies for different kind of news. What we did at Ayodhya was that we have around 1600 villages. So we did a lot of innovations here. We developed an app which was having around 16,000 volunteers in 1600 villages. So we had all those numbers, and these were recruited as digital volunteers. And whenever there was a fake news all across India about Ayodhya, these people used to flash these news through the 200 WhatsApp groups that we are maintaining for the digital volunteers all across Ayodhya. So this helped us a lot when these big three things came over the course of time, and we were able to handle this pretty well. In fact, UP Police handled it pretty well because in all of the districts, Rahul is the next speaker, and he has been instrumental in creating a Twitter setup across the whole UP, in each district, and all of the media cells there are very active, and we have different tools to search on the social media what is the pulse and what is going on. And that also helps to have a decentralized architecture to find the fake news and then counter it with the legal actions. Now, with respect to legal actions, the surety of the punishment as well as the swiftness of your response is very important. In case of fake news, it's almost like a tsunami which is going to come. So the sooner you attack this menace, it can be stopped. So we have seen over a period of time, whenever there is a fake news which has just started, if you immediately send out a bite, and in this and the social media influencers like Rahul or UP, so if we counter it immediately, then that news doesn't become fake news and it doesn't spread that much. So it's very essential to stop the fake news at the beginning itself, and to deal with it very firmly. There can be multiple approaches to stop fake news. At Ayodhya, as I said, that we had 16,000 volunteers and 200 WhatsApp groups which we were doing, and Times of India also covered it. We also used pulse on the ground. Like there in police, there is a beat system. So beat system is nothing but it's a decentralized responsibility of each policeman. Like an SP is responsible for the whole district. So under SP, there might be different police stations. Each police station might be consisting of 100 villages. And each of these villages have some constables who are responsible for it. So that is the beat system. So we have around 4,000 policemen at Ayodhya, and each policeman is probably responsible for around 2-3 villages or mohallas. And once they take that responsibility, that from this village or this mohalla, no fake news will come, or any impact of fake news will not be there, that will be very important. So before any big event, my experience is that you have to do a massive exercise. You have to do the awareness with all the citizens. Like in Ayodhya, we have around 30 lakh people. So we, using these 4,000 policemen, we connected with almost everyone. And we had a group with the community leaders of different communities, different religions, and that acted very well, because we immediately sent out our disclaimers, and those disclaimers were then pushed to different social media platforms. So in a way, what our problem is our solution, because these social media platforms help in spreading the fake news, and these can help us to actually curb it also. There can be short-term, medium-term, and long-term solutions to the fake news. Short-term is, as I said, sure and early. Your response should be very fast, and it should be a sure legal action. Medium-term strategy can be with respect to these platforms which are there, like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all those platforms, to talk to them and have policy inbuilt in their algorithms, so that they can fight the fake news and help us in fighting this menace. Long-term view can be a lot of solutions which are in technical, legal, political, social, administrative, judicial domains. Technical solution can be, people talk about fake news and they say that person who is the fake news, we should have something which can automatically search a database and inform the user that what you are sharing is fake news. A teamwork is required to fight this menace. The Janta, police, and politicians, and different bureaucrats and media. Everybody has to come together, and they have to have a synergistic approach, holistic approach to fight this menace. That's where I conclude, and I will be happy to take the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashish. I think that was very, very crisp and to the point. You gave us a short-term, medium-term, and long-term view. I think as we go ahead, I think it will become very, very critical to have all these experiences factored into our next strategies. while talking here, and Harsh, you can an idea that we should try and collate all these experiences from the ground and collate it as best practices on fake news management. For want of time, I'll go straight to our next speaker, Rahul Srivastava, SP of SP City Jhansi. Rahul. Maybe I think Rahul has dropped out because of some technical glitch. Over to you, Pankaj. You have been one of country's first fact checker. And how does it feel? How did it all start? If you can quickly summarize the next 5 minutes, and then we have many questions that we can take as we go along.
Hello, Navneet ji, can you hear me?
Ji.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for considering me worth, and I'm honored sitting among all these respected people.
Viewers both on Facebook and here or are requesting if हम लोग बहुत ज्यादा इंग्लिश हो रहा है, कुछ लोग बोल रहे हैं कि अगर हिंदी में भी अगर आप
जी
बात करें तो अच्छा रहेगा.
जी बिल्कुल सही बात है. तो शुक्रिया मुझे इतना समझने के लिए, यहाँ बुलाने के लिए among these respected honor people. I would start, मैं एक चीज से चालू करूंगा जिससे मैं खत्म भी करता हूं, कि आप किसी भी मैसेज, फॉरवर्डेड मैसेज को फॉरवर्ड मत किया कीजिए. सिंपल सी बात है. अगर वो सही है तो कोई मिस हो गया, पर अगर गलत है तो आप इतना समझ लीजिए कि आपके कारण कोई मर सकता है, फिर आपको अच्छी नींद नहीं आएगी. बहुत कुछ ऐसा हो चुका है. सपोज कोरोना का कोई आपको बता दिया किसी ने इस टैबलेट से ठीक होता है, आपने मान के फॉरवर्ड कर दिया, किसी ने वो टैबलेट ले लिया, एलर्जी हो गई, तो वो फिर आपकी गलती होगी. ये जो सुन रहे हैं मैं उनको बता रहा हूं. इसलिए ऑलवेज सबसे पहली बात है कि आप फॉरवर्डेड मैसेज को बिल्कुल फॉरवर्ड ना करें. लोग तो जानबूझकर उसके ऊपर लिखते हैं फॉरवर्डेड एज रिसीव्ड. उसका मतलब ये होता है कि भाई मेरा कोई लेना देना नहीं है, अगर आप मरो तो आपकी गलती, मेरा कोई लेना देना नहीं. तो ये फॉरवर्डेड एज रिसीव्ड इज अ कवर्ड शील्ड. सिर्फ डरपोक लोग ऐसा लिखते हैं फॉरवर्डेड एज रिसीव्ड. ठीक है, आगे मैं बताता हूं आपको कि भाई क्या है कि ये तो वर्ल्ड वाइड पेंडेमिक है फेक न्यूज, पर इंडिया में स्पेशलिटी क्या है, क्यों ज्यादा वायरल है? क्योंकि भाई इंडिया सबसे बड़ी डेमोक्रेसी है ऑब्वियसली, एंड वी हैव द लार्जेस्ट इंग्रेडिएंट्स ऑफ द फेक न्यूज. नंबर ऑफ गॉड्स एंड गॉडेसेस, रिलीजन्स, कल्चर, लैंग्वेजेस, इन सबको मिला के एक तरफ से बड़ा अच्छा लगता है यूनिटी का, पर फेक न्यूज में यही चीज हमको पीछे ले जाती है. सबको लगता है हमारा रिलीजन अच्छा है और हमारा ही ये अच्छा और दूसरों का. तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर है, इसको ध्यान रखना चाहिए, सबको रिस्पेक्ट करना चाहिए. फिर ये मैंने चालू किया था 2015 में, आज से 5 साल पहले. कारण ये था कि उस समय भी फेक न्यूज होता था, पर उस समय किसी को तकलीफ नहीं होती थी. मतलब वो सब मजाकिया थे. जैसे नासा ने रिलीज किया है हमारे दिवाली का फोटोग्राफ स्पेस से लिया हुआ, या फिर हमारे नेशनल एंथम को यूनेस्को ने बेस्ट नेशनल एंथम कर दिया. पर ठीक है, मतलब खुशी होती, झूठी खुशी होती थी, लेकिन किसी की बुराई, किसी का बुरा नहीं होता था. पर फिर बाय द एंड ऑफ in last 3 years it has taken a complete turn. Now it is totally, this fake news is totally based on spreading communal hatred and votes. तो आपको ये पता होना चाहिए, आपको मतलब आप ये ध्यान से देखिए, जब आपको व्हाट्सएप पे एक मैसेज मिलता है तो फेक न्यूज मिलता है, तो आप ये बात समझ लीजिए कि आप टारगेट है किसी के और यू आर बीइंग यूज्ड. उनको पता है कि आपको ये पसंद आएगा और आप फॉरवर्ड करेंगे. तो दो चीजें हैं, यू आर अ टारगेट एंड यू आर बीइंग यूज्ड. So you should take care of it also. फिर अब ये 3 साल में डेटा का चार्जेस भी बहुत कम हो गया है, तो वो भी एक बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर है. क्योंकि मतलब उसके पहले जो डेटा यूज होता था यूट्यूब और वो मोस्टली दैट वाज यूज्ड बाय लिटरेट पीपल हु आर लिटरेट. आई एम सॉरी, आई मीन देयर इज अ ह्यूज डिफरेंस बिटवीन IQ एंड लिटरेसी, सो कीप दैट अपार्ट. पर फिर बाद में क्या हो गया कि ऑटो वाले और सब्जी वाले वो भी व्हाट्सएप देखते हैं, और उनको जो आता है, जैसा अभी उन्होंने बोला था व्हाट्सएप यूनिवर्सिटी, उनके लिए वो सही होता है. ठीक है, तो ये बहुत बड़ी चीज थी. और सबसे बड़ा फैक्टर है जो कि आई डोंट नो हाउ यू ऑल कैन हम सब यहाँ पे सोचते हैं कि हम कैसे रोक सकते हैं, ये सकते हैं, पर बेसिक तरीका फेक न्यूज स्प्रेड होने का है कि हमारा बायसनेस और प्रेजुडिस। कोई मैसेज हमको आया और हमको वो पसंद आ गया, मतलब वो हमारे विचारों से मेल खाता है, तो फिर आदमी समझते ही नहीं कि उसको उस पे सोचने की भी जरूरत है, उसे किसी से पूछने की भी जरूरत है, पता करने की भी जरूरत है कि सही है कि गलत है। बस अगर मैं किसी को सही मानता हूँ और किसी से का फैन हूँ या वो हूँ, और वो मैसेज में उसे मैच करता है, तो बस बहुत बढ़िया बात, कर दो फॉरवर्ड। ये प्रेजुडिस और बायसनेस इज द बिगेस्ट इश्यू विद दिस फेक न्यूज, एंड आई डोंट नो हाउ दिस कैन बी स्टॉप्ड until this fake news is being termed as a crime. And like other people were saying, there's a difference between मतलब वो ये नहीं बता सकते कि क्या फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच है और क्या फेक न्यूज है। मतलब लोगों को फेक न्यूज को भी फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच में ले सकते हैं क्या, पर ये नहीं, दोनों बिल्कुल अलग चीज है। कोई आदमी आपको एक वीडियो भेज रहा है या किसी ने ट्वीट किया है जिसपे कोई कम्युनल एंगल दिया हुआ है जो कि बिल्कुल झूठ है, वो सीधा साधा झूठ है और सीधा साधा क्राइम है। He cannot take advantage of freedom of speech. That is my belief. I mean, you guys are more into it, so आप लोगों को ज्यादा पता होगा। पर फेक न्यूज मतलब सीधा सीधा झूठ होता है और इसके पीछे आदमी का पर्पस होता है कि नफरत फैलाने का, स्प्रेड हेट्रेड। देयर आर टू थिंग्स, वन इज मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन, वन इज डिस इन्फॉर्मेशन। मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन वो पहले वाला हुआ करता था जो गलती से कोई आदमी लिख दे। डिस इन्फॉर्मेशन होता है जो कोई आदमी जानबूझकर फैला रहा है। मैं आपको कुछ एग्जांपल बताता हूँ। डिस इन्फॉर्मेशन क्या होता है कि कोई आदमी ऐसा ट्वीट करता है कुछ वीडियो या फोटो जिसपे कुछ कम्युनल हेट्रेड का मैटर हो, उसको फॉलो करने वाले, अब मतलब उसके मान लो 500-600 ही फॉलोअर है, पर उसके उस ट्वीट को कुछ हजार रीट्वीट्स मिल जाते हैं। तो ये तो ऑब्वियस है कि पूरा ऑर्गेनाइज्ड है। और फिर क्या होता है कि लोग जब उसको ठीक करते हैं, नहीं यार ये तो बहुत पुराना वीडियो है, नहीं यार ये तो गलत है, तो वो उनको समझाता है, तो क्या उखाड़ लोगे। लेकिन exactly at the same time, if somebody tags a city police or state police on that tweet, it vanishes into thin air. तुरंत का तुरंत ट्वीट डिलीट हो जाता है। तो ये बिल्कुल स्ट्रेटेजिकली फैलाया जा रहा झूठ है लोगों को भड़काने के लिए और हेट्रेड फैलाने के लिए। अब इसको कोई फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच कैसे बोल सकता है, वो आई डोंट हैव स्लाइटेस्ट आइडिया। ठीक है, फिर ये जैसा मैंने कहा कि लोग जानना ही नहीं, जब तक उनको मैच हो रहा लोग जानना ही नहीं चाहते क्या सच है। आप लोग देख चुके होंगे कि जितने फैक्ट चेकर्स हैं, मैं मेरे जैसे बहुत सारे, उनकी बहुत लिमिटेड फॉलोइंग है, थाउजेंड्स एंड लैक्स, दैट्स ऑल। वो भी रीट्वीट्स कितने मिलते हैं, 25-50 रीट्वीट मिलते हैं। जब सच किसी को नहीं अच्छा लगता तो उसको कोई रीट्वीट नहीं करता। लाइक मूवीज, लाइक सॉन्ग्स, इट हैज टू बी एंटरटेनिंग, इट हैज टू बी मैचिंग योर एजेंडा एंड बायस। अगर सच नहीं अच्छा लगा तो फिर क्या जरूरत है, साइड में कर दो। ठीक है, फिर आपको बताता हूं मैं कुछ तरीके। लेट्स गेट टू कि कैसे कैसे होता है। इमेज होता है, इमेज को एडिट कर देते हैं, फोटोशॉप कर देते हैं, चेहरा किसी और का लगा देते हैं। और इसमें क्या होता है, कुछ तो बहुत ही आसानी से पता किया जा सकता है कि क्या है, लेकिन बहुत लोग जब देखना ही नहीं चाहते तो वो कैसे देख सकते हैं। वीडियोस होते हैं, मैं वीडियोस के बारे में आपको बताता हूँ। वीडियोस में बहुत बेसिक क्लूज जो होते हैं पकड़ने के कि वो सही है कि गलत है, वो वीडियो में ही होते हैं। प्रॉब्लम ये होती है कि जब कोई आदमी वो वीडियो को रिसीव करता है और उसके साथ लिखा हुआ टेक्स्ट उसको पसंद आता है, तो वो तो वीडियो डाउनलोड तक नहीं करता और उसको एज इट इज फॉरवर्ड कर देता है। दिक्कत यहाँ होती है। वीडियो को अगर आप सच्चाई जानना चाहते हो तो बहुत सिंपल है, आप वीडियो ईयरफोन लगा लो, वीडियो सुनो, ध्यान से देखो, आपको फटाक से पता चल जाएगा कि वो कौन सा लैंग्वेज बोल रहे हैं। अगर हिंदी है तो कौन सा एक्सेंट है, पंजाबी हिंदी है कि बंगाली हिंदी है, वो पता चल जाएगा। वो कपड़े किस टाइप के पहने हैं उससे पता चल जाएगा किस जगह का है। आसपास जो व्हीकल्स खड़े हैं उनके नंबर प्लेट से पता चल जाएगा कौन सी जगह। दुकान है तो दुकान से पता चल जाएगा। दुनिया भर के आपके क्लूज उसमें रहते हैं वीडियो में, अगर आप जानना चाहते हैं तो। सिंपल सी बात है। उसके बाद फिर तो और टेक्निकल तरीके होते हैं, स्क्रीनशॉट लेके गूगल रिवर्स इमेज कीजिए वगैरह वो सब। पर मतलब रोकने का तरीका यही है कि अगर आदमी जानना चाहे तो। फिर मैं बताता हूँ आपको वीडियो में क्या क्या होता है कि कुछ तो क्या करते हैं लोग, वीडियो जैसे 2 साल पहले एक वीडियो वायरल हुआ था, किसी लड़की का सर काटा जा रहा था और बोला गया था कि इस धर्म के लोगों ने इस धर्म का ये काट दिया। एक लड़की को जला दिया गया था जिंदा जला गया था। तो उसमें बहुत सिंपल सी बात है, मैंने ईयरफोन लगा के सुना तो पता चल गया कि इंडिया का तो कोई लैंग्वेज नहीं है। थोड़ा सा सर्च किया, पता चला कि वो ब्राजील का है या साउथ अमेरिका है, वहां पे वो गैंग वॉर्स वगैरह होते हैं और उन लोग के लिए तो ये रोज का काम है, किसी का काटना वगैरह, वायलेंस तो वहाँ, तो ये सब चीजें वहां पता चल जाती है। अभी पिछले साल 2 साल से एक नया ट्रेंड चालू हुआ है, ट्वीट को वीडियो को क्लिप कर देना। अगर मैं आपको बोल रहा हूं कि पंकज ने ये कहा था कि ऐसा करेगा, और किसी ने ये क्लिप कर दिया कि पंकज ने ऐसा कहा था, तो आप तक जो व्हाट्सएप पे वीडियो पहुंचेगा वो ये करेगा तक ही पहुंचेगा। उसमें क्या होता है, मैं आपको एग्जांपल देता हूँ।
We'll take some issues during our Q&A because we're already about an hour. And yes, if you can finish in 2 minutes, please.
राइट राइट, तो बस यही है कि वो नरोवा कुंजरोवा वाली बात है कि वो आदमी था या हाथी, वो हमको नहीं पता, बस ये वाली बातें हैं। तो वीडियोस को आप ध्यान से देखें और थोड़ा सा आप वो कीवर्ड के बेसिस पे भी सर्च कर ले, यूट्यूब पे सर्च कर ले, आपको मिल जाएगा। तो बस बेसिकली सबसे रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा, आप फॉरवर्डेड मैसेज जिसके ऊपर फॉरवर्डेड लिखा रहता है वो कतई फॉरवर्ड ना करें, और भेजने वाले को पूछ ले कि भाई सोर्स तो दे, मेरा इसका एक सोर्स दे दे, नहीं तो आप उसको मान लीजिए कि ये झूठ है, ठीक है।
Right.
बस यही है। चलिए,
Thank you, Pankaj, so much. Thank you. We have almost an hour gone. We'll try and wrap up quickly. Now we have our last but one of the most important speakers, Rahul Srivastava, SP City Jhansi. He has been at the forefront of driving the digital transformation of UP Police. Also has had many accolades to his credit, including busting fake news through different interventions. And he's running a unique program as City SP Jhansi. Over to you, Rahul. After your remarks, then we shall have a Q&A session.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Ravi sir, for having me over in this illustrious panel of senior officers and scholars. And I really feel privileged to be part of it. And my previous co-panelists have sketched out this problem of fake news in great detail, have fleshed out the details, the strategy, the macro perspective, with examples, real case studies as Harsh sir has done, and with added scholarship of Kiran sir's research of Shivning. I would like to restrict myself to the COVID pandemic, the misinformation and disinformation which is surrounding the COVID pandemic, and what little intervention we could introduce here in Jhansi, which has and share the findings with the panelists and the people who've joined. So at the very outset, I would say that this entire problem of misinformation around this COVID pandemic is really, really grave. And digital transformation of UP Police and share the findings. I'm having an audio echo. Am I audible?
Yes, Rahul, better. तो बीच में 1 minute 30 seconds के लिए कुछ issue था. It's clear now.
Okay. So at the outset, as I said, that this disinformation around this COVID pandemic has assumed alarming proportions, and for me, it is like a disinfodemic. From infodemic, it has become a disinfodemic, and I see around fake news a Gresham's law of news operating. This Gresham's law is borrowed from economics, where there is a tendency in economics. The Gresham's law states that the money of lower intrinsic value, it circulates more freely and it drives out money of higher intrinsic value. So similarly, I see a Gresham's law in the field of news, in the field of facts, where I see fake news, proliferating at a much more speed than the actual facts and driving out the real facts from the actual ecosystem. And this has become menacing enough to the extent that the entire news, entire information ecosystem has been contaminated, and contaminated to an alarming extent. It was there earlier, but in the context of COVID pandemic, it becomes alarming because it has become life-threatening. It has become life-threatening. It is having repercussions on people's life, their security, their well-being. Therefore, I congratulate you for choosing this topic of discussion and relating it to the COVID pandemic. And to tell you the ground reality that this is spreading as faster. The menace of disinformation and misinformation around COVID is spreading, faster than the virus itself, and therefore the urgency with which we have to tackle it. I would begin with a local example, an example of Jhansi. Few days back, perhaps a video which all of you would have seen had gone viral internationally. There is a park here called Kashiram Park, and there is a shoulder press machine here. Some miscreant went in the night. He swung the machine. The bearings had worn out. The bearings of the machine had worn out. It was slightly greased, and he swung the machine and recorded the video. This was circulated on WhatsApp. It spread like wildfire, and it was attributed to ghosts in the park, and people linked it to some park in Rohini, Delhi, and some people attributed it to Jhansi, and we had to intervene. I had to tweet about it, and from Jhansi police, from my own handle, and what became scary was that people are already in a state of panic in this scenario, in this situation of pandemic. And to add to that pandemic, where people are afraid of their life, their very prospect of survival, add to this ghost thing, though it was a slight act of mischief, but the result was that the next day, the very park which was thronged by many people was empty. There was no one in the park on the next morning. And our prompt rebuttal of that on social media, the first thing we did was to send a team of police officers there who swung it, got a video recorded so that it could be clarified to people that how this machine operates. On the slightest push, the shoulder press machine swings for at least 30 seconds or something like that. And the second example was, there is a health personnel here, a health employee of the lower level. He is privy to the COVID results of the lab here. That person, he had an axe to grind against somebody. So there was an audio conversation of that health official of the lower level. He's talking to somebody, and he was trying to reveal somebody's COVID report falsely positive. He was alarming everybody in his locality that the results of the COVID test of a person has come to be positive, so that his entire family could be ostracized. And he had some axe to grind with that particular family. That audio was widely disseminated in Jhansi and causing great discomfort for the family. And we had to intervene. We verified the results were not positive, and we had to lodge an FIR against that person here. And action was taken against everybody who had shared that audio clip. The other dimension in which the entire COVID battle is getting degenerated at the countryside, and also even in the urban centers also, is attributing it to some kind of evil spirit, attributing it to some kind of divine retribution. As you would have seen, and there is a video from the northern India, either from Bihar or from Jharkhand, where women are, kind of defying it. They have turned Corona. The Na is nine grah, and Corona has become a Mai. So this has been prevalent in this country, where there is illiteracy, where there is superstition, where there is ignorance. When people are hopeless, when there is a situation of despair, when there is a situation of ignorance, then such kind of pandemics where you have no solution in sight at the moment, where the medical interventions have not been evolved, you kind of attribute it to some kind of divine curse. What happens is that this kind of deification of a disease will, sway away people, will prevent them from taking the requisite course of treatment to this, from getting it diagnosed, from getting themselves tested. What the remedy prescribed by that lady, which was widely said in that video, was that a certain kind of ritual has to be performed through which this disease can go away. And in one district of Jharkhand, a group of women fasted for 9 days. one of the women, her condition deteriorated and she passed away. So I'm just trying to outline the scenario around the misinformation and disinformation around the pandemic of corona, where it is going to have fatal consequences as far as our medical intervention is concerned, and also evolving protocols of treatment and making people aware. So having seized of this matter, uh, around 2 months back when this lockdown has started, I realized that this is going to take long and it cannot be done by police alone. So therefore, I roped in university volunteers of NSS and NCC and the civil defense people here. So they are around 500 in number. And we had an orientation session with them. They were apprised of the scenario, of the uncertainty of the future, which is going to unfold in front of us. And they were prepared to partner with the police and to fight this pandemic. So these youngsters have done a wonderful job. They were deployed at the grocery shops. They were deployed at the vegetable markets. They were deployed at every barriers. I mean, they were deployed in the offline mode to enforce the lockdown during the lockdown period, and they did a wonderful job as force multipliers for us. Ever since the lockdown has eased, on 24th of May, we launched a mask force. We realized that now we have to penetrate into the countryside, we have to penetrate into the kasbahs, we have to penetrate into the mohallas, since the lockdown had eased out and people had started coming out. And we reoriented our team, these volunteers of NCC and NSS, and we realized that apart from enforcing the wearing of masks, social distance, we have to take this misinformation campaign or the disinformation or the ignorance around COVID a bit more seriously, and we have to educate the villagers. So this mask force comprising of these young volunteers was launched on 24th of May. And these are 5 vans. They move around in 5 vans, 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening. And every van covers a different village on a daily basis. There is a policeman in that van. There is a loudspeaker. There are 3 volunteers. There is a printed pamphlet handed over to them. And they choose a village. And when they go to the village, they spend 2 to 3 hours talking to children, talking to women, talking to old age people, and educating and making them aware of the consequences about the disease, about the precautions. And I am happy to share with you the preliminary findings of a research which we have done today itself, which I just wanted to fathom and gauge what difference has our intervention made. The areas where the mask force comprising of the volunteers has visited and the areas where we haven't visited. So we had formulated our questionnaire. We finalized it yesterday. Today it was served on a sample of 250 people, and the findings have come out in the evening. I'll share with you the document on the screen, and it is very much evident and very much clear the impact positive intervention can have, the intervention which groundwork can have. I'll share with you the screen. Can everyone see the graphics on the screen?
Yes, Rahul, we can.
So this questionnaire contains a lot of questions. I've just taken 2 questions to share with you in the panel because this veers around the topic that you've chosen today. This question was asked where we asked the 3 people what were the causes of corona pandemic. So the first graph which you see, the blue bar, is the area where the mask force had gone, where the intervention was made, where the volunteers have gone, and the red bar is are those villages where the mask force has not visited. So 65% of the people in the areas where where our researchers have gone, they realize that it is a virus, and only 45% of people in villages where we have not visited regard it as any kind of virus. The second graph where you see how many of them attribute it to some kind of a divine attribution. So only 15% in those villages where our volunteers have gone regarded as some kind of divine curse, whereas 32% in the villages where we have not visited. Similarly, The third question was that do you explain it to some kind of retribution of your punya pap, your karma? So only 20% in those villages and 23% in the next village, in the villages where we have not gone, they regard it as their karma. So the differences in the graphs, the percentage itself reveals what impact can groundwork as far as awareness drives can bring about. If we have to fight this pandemic, it cannot be through webinars and boardroom discussions alone. We have to flag these issues out, but we need to step out. Volunteers have to go out. Administration has to come out of the confines of their comfort level. These youngsters, these volunteers have to be roped in. And this is a battle which has to be together. I'm sharing with you the second finding of the research. The second finding, a question was asked that if somebody is found to be corona positive in your village, how many of you would take recourse to Jharphu? Only 10% in the village where the mask force had visited, they said that they will take recourse to it, whereas in the villages where we have not gone is 24%. In the second question, that how many of you would inform the district administration, 65% response in the positive in where we visited, 44% in areas where we have not visited. And when they were asked that would you drive them out of the village, so 25% in our village where we have visited, they said that they'll drive them out, and 32% in the next category village where we've not been able to visit. So this is a small effort, to judge what, and this has been this is launched on the 24th of this month. The primary focus has been on enforcing the wearing of masks, keeping social distance. We have done role plays where the child has been made a police officer. We have convinced the child that if your father goes out and if he comes back, he doesn't washes the hand, he is a prisoner, and you will arrest him and not allow him to enter the house. So it was not only about the infodemic, but we were also focusing on social distancing. A part of it was creating awareness around the pandemic, and the results are revealing that this kind of intervention can make a small amount of difference to their understanding. And similarly, not only in terms of COVID, but as far as the entire battle of fake news is concerned, we have to work in the offline and online mode both. This battle against the fake news has to be fought in an offline as well as online mode both. UP Police is a classic example where this battle is being fought in a very robust manner in the online world as well as the offline world, as Ashish sir is a practitioner of that. Realizing this problem of authentic information. Most of the fake news thrives on the fact that for lack of authentic information, it thrives in ignorance, it thrives in fear, it thrives in prejudice. So half of it will go away if official authentic information was circulated as widely as fake news. We realize that the fake news peddlers are huge numbers. If you know that, I'll share a small statistics with you that Facebook has flagged 40 million posts have been flagged as fake by Facebook during the COVID pandemic. So you realize the amount of misinformation which is around fake news, and how many of us are actually engaged in the war to counter this fake news. So what I'm trying to say is that the counterforce to against fake news has to be as large a number as the propagators of fake news.
Right.
Having realized this, am I audible?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So having realized this, what we did in UP was to have a social media presence of every district SP of all the 75 districts, of all IG ranges, of all ADGs. Once we started this, we also realized through the feedback of journalists that many a times when there is an incident in any district, if there is an authentic bite of the SP or any officer, any police officer, a visual bite, it does make a difference. It makes a difference more than the tweet. And that bite can be uploaded and circulated on WhatsApp. So it really helps in quelling misinformation at a very fast pace. So what we evolved a system where if there is any incident anywhere in the state, the concerned police officer, primarily the SP, if the SP is engaged somewhere else or he is busy, some officer, some gazetted officer, either a DSP or the additional SP or the SSP, will upload his bite. And in many cases, the officers, while they have been rushing to the scene of crime or the spot wherever any incident has happened, they have recorded it from their mobile and uploaded it on their Twitter feed, from where the journalists have taken their official version. And then we have a background network of digital volunteers. Every police station is having a digital volunteer network where there is a WhatsApp group of every police station where it is connected to the citizens. So once we record the bite, it is uploaded on all platforms. It is uploaded on Twitter, it is uploaded on Facebook, it is uploaded, pushed through the WhatsApp groups. And this has fortunately helped us in overcoming, the gravest of challenges, as Ashish sir has experienced in Ayodhya. Our robust infrastructure, which had been created over a period of time, has helped us in preventing any kind of untoward, campaign. We've been able to quell it in time, and there hasn't been any repercussions. There has been any unfortunate law and order incident which could have sprung out of fake news, because our rebuttal is very quick.
Great.
And so this is all I had to say, because I was offline for quite some time, and a lot of time has already passed. So this is all I had to say. Thank
Yes, it's a midweek and it's a dinner time for many of our participants and all of us. So we'll try and quickly wrap up by taking few questions. We have many questions. Thank you, Kiran, for having answered some of these live. That was very sweet of you. So we have Harshvardhan, who is talking about the PIB fact check. I'll flag some questions. We have Sunil Kabla asking about the legal provisions, some of which have been covered. We have Ayush Malik, who is asking about data protection bill. Sakshi says, what do you do when you spot a fake news? Soham is asking is it possible to have police in different WhatsApp groups? And what are the, so there was this news that those found spreading fake news will be penalized during COVID. What has happened on that? And Vishal Kumar is asking how to educate people in rural areas. I have a question to Mir. So largely it's, I'm always intrigued. I did a series when doing a column in a couple of years ago. I did a series on fake news. So what was intriguing to find that it's largely a behavioral issue. So there are those who are typically criminal bent of mind, but there are those who have a slight behavioral issues as well. So is it a mix? How do you see? Is it a mix of psychological, criminal, behavioral? How do you look at this problem, Mir?
Yeah, so to answer your question, see, there are going to be a set of people who are going to create misinformation, and creating misinformation and putting out fake news actually has a very solid economic angle to it. And this becomes particularly prominent during times of crises. Corona is one example. COVID crisis is one example. In Kerala, if you look at it, the floods are another example. So these times where there is a huge information vacuum, a lot of people step in to increase their reach. And if you have a reach on a place like YouTube, you can actually monetize it. If you have a reach on a website, if I can quickly, just to give you a quick example, now during COVID, now all people from outside the states are coming back to the states. If I can quickly make a fake message, put it out there and say, click this link in order to register with the government for coming back into the state, I'll suddenly get a huge increase in terms of visitor traffic to my website. I can then use that to monetize. I can use that traffic to monetize it. Now, these things people don't know. So a lot of people will, out of goodwill, will just forward that message to hundreds of people. Hundreds of people forward it to another 1,000 people. But at no point do they know that this is the sort of mentality that is working at the working behind these fake messages. If they knew about it, if they knew that by carelessly sharing unverified links, you're actually helping a crook or a liar make money, you would feel a little less hesitant about sharing it, because why would you want to be the laborer for another crook or a liar, right? So a lot of people are completely, not even a lot, I would say the vast majority are unaware about the revenue model with which the internet works. Some people have figured that out, that okay, when you spread information, when you do some emotional manipulation, etc., you can attract clicks to your website, you can increase your follower count, with which you can even sell products after that, because once you have a follow account, then anyone will be willing to pay you for advertising their products. This knowledge has to be more easily available to people, and I think the way to go about that is you could go about doing a lot of campaigns around it. I'll again go back to the smoking thing. If you can do a lot of thing around it, it doesn't have to be ki fake news se bach ke rahiye only. It could be don't be an idiot. Here is somebody who's profiting off your stupidity. Don't be a fool or something like that. Which sort of pricks you where it hurts, makes you laugh at yourself. That sort of campaign, if we can start it at every level of society. Celebrities have been doing a lot of campaigns, but those campaigns, like one of the previous speakers said, it has to go a little deeper than saying news share mat kar. News share mat kar is fine, but go a little deeper than that, saying don't. These are the consequences, and you could make humorous content around it. But I think one irreplaceable part is you have to make people, you have to make kids, you have to make students aware of this, because that generation, my personal experience says that the generation which is above 40, late 30s and the 40s, that generation is gone out of your hands. It's very difficult to get them, because I've interacted with them personally, and it's very difficult to make leeway directly. But when you talk to kids who have been born with technology around them, they don't worship technology the way our parents' generation does. So if you can reach them, you can actually blunt the effect of fake news. See, the people creating the fake news aren't the main problem. It's the people who are blindly spreading it. And if they were more aware about the consequences of their actions, as opposed to how it is now, I think we could make a dent in this process, which is what even say a state like Finland has done.
Great. Kiran, you have been answering some of the questions, but largely, if you look at the problem, it's the way to go ahead is looking at this from an awareness, public education, legal, and information and enforcement. What's your view? What your thesis talk? If you can talk about some of your findings and the way according to you.
So actually, when we initially it comes the technology, because there was been a clamor around what these technology companies are doing about it. Those platforms like Twitter, they all hide behind that US Communication Decency Act. See, for example, the platforms are not liable for whatever is being put on their put on the platforms, because they're not liable. They're just an intermediary. Even the Indian Information Technology Act provides a very safe cushion for them. So what are they doing? They just say, I don't know, somebody has put some data on my platform, on my post, so what can I do? But the Facebooks, the WhatsApps, the YouTubes have taken steps to initially to check child pornography and then slowly do other things as well. Now, there is a limit on what technology can do, because what you consider as fake news might not be a fake news for me, because it might be something that I think as Mir rightly pointed out, it is not the people who make the fake news, it is the people who actually spread it, who make it really bad. So again, the people who make it are also equally culpable. But now, technology, even in spite of the natural learning, NLP algorithms, in spite of the great pattern detection algorithms, again, when you have one algorithm, it's like a cat and mouse game. You develop one algorithm, then the culprit who wants to do that goes one step ahead. Because all these things were initially made for the good of the humankind, including Tor. Tor was used made by DARPA for secret communication for the US Army. But now who are using it? So technology was always, thought of as a good thing. There is a limit to it. We can't just harp on technology to save us. yes, it's an enabler, it's a catalyst, it's a good vehicle for us to move faster. But yes, technology, legislation. People must have heard about the Germany coming in with the next DG Act, which penalizes 50 million euros on up to 50 million euros on false information. Come across Singapore, who basically penalizes all such action. Italy had given powers to their federal police to take action, not the provincial, the federal police to take action if some false news has come up. But we live in a democracy. People had been asking questions, what is the police doing? But what are WhatsApp groups being policed? So your WhatsApp group is like your home. Do you see police inside your homes every day? Do police like to listen to even listen to your private conversations? No. So it is, WhatsApp group is a global village now, because I sitting here can text to somebody sitting in the United States of America, across the world, the other side of the world. So it's like bringing the entire world into a single boardroom. Police, yes, it's there. By speaking about police, I mean enforcement. Nobody wants to enforce enforcement inside your brains, enforcement inside your mobile phones. So enforcement is, and law are not the only things. As I said earlier, we have sections in the Indian Penal Code, we have sections in the Information Technology Act to deal with, not with misinformation, but with information or data meant to incite violence or instigate the commission of an offense. Yes, it is there. And there are sections which says about if somebody is instigating some riots, if somebody is saying something so that religious sentiments are violated, people do put sedition acts as well if such an act is committed. But again, that alone will not suffice to control the spread of fake news. A lot of people, as we discussed earlier, consider that the news is genuine and they spread it. So we have to have a culture, develop a culture wherein we, before spreading any kind of news, we first check and verify. There is a beautiful statement in English: trust but verify. We say to everybody, trust but verify. So you can trust your WhatsApp groups, but there is no harm in verifying. And if it is false, don't forward it. That's the least that we can do. And again, creating awareness among people. I mean, the persons above 50 are like, they are used to certain kind of thing, but the millennial generation, at least those who are born after the 80s, they know. They can be educated. The kids can be educated. There can be an educational curriculum in schools. Uganda, of all places, had done a beautiful thing. It is being covered in the BBC. You can check on Google, Uganda, BBC and fake news. So they have they're teaching the kids, little kids, as 9 or 10-year-old kids, like certain news that comes across may not always be true. And they teach one lesson in a week or so. So people know, kids know. Similarly for adults, Ukraine had done something where they taught the adults using through some games, the role-playing games, which they did, and to some success, they could do it.
Great.
And UK had come across a beautiful paper in the parliament itself. It is on disinformation. There had been a parliamentary committee which deliberated on it and what needs to be done. So somebody who's interested can actually read that. So there they discuss about various mechanisms that they tried and should be tried. We can try all these. So we cannot work in silos. The technology, enforcement, legislation, and education, awareness plus collaborative efforts. Like what our friends like Pankaj are doing, a beautiful thing, because they come forward to slay the fake news. They are putting it up on Twitter, they're putting it up on multiple platforms. So this is the one way that if a fake news can propagate, our counter to that should also propagate. People should, again, awareness. So
Right. Thank you so much. Thanks, Kiran. We have last few minutes. If we can quickly have one final round of words. So Harsh, how do you look at the legal provisions going ahead? What are your recommendations? If you can very quickly summarize.
So there's a complex matrix in the manner in which the law interacts as far as fake news is concerned. It is debatable about whether we should have a comprehensive legislation, perhaps at the state level or at the national level, dealing with fake news. At the moment, the manner in which the architecture exists is there is section 505 of the Indian Penal Code that provides for a period of 3 years of imprisonment for rumors that can cause public alarm or disaffection or can disturb public tranquility. There is a higher version of the section 505 in subsection 2, which is for promoting ill will among people. Now, this second part, ill will on religious grounds. The second part is actually cognizable, which means that the police can actually arrest the accused. Apart from this, the cases that we face, which are communal in nature, we often use two sections of the IPC that are very frequently used. One is 295A and the other is 153A. 295A is about hurting someone's religious or communal sentiments. And 153A provides for actually provoking enmity between two religious groups, actually to the point of violence. And both have a punishment of 3 years and they're treated extremely seriously. This is with regard to the conventional Indian Penal Code, which is seen like the mother of the criminal law enforcement point of view. I'll come also to the Information Technology Act. In the Information Technology Act, there was a section that was point on with regard to fake news, but it was struck down by the Supreme Court in the Shreya Singhal case in 2015, if I remember correctly. 66A dealt specifically with menacing news being passed on through electronic means. But now the sections that are there in the Information Technology Act deal with very specific types. You can't even call it fake news actually, because it deals with things like pornography, obscenity. So you have sections that are still alive for that, but 66A has been struck down. There is another section which is 66D that deals with cheating by impersonation. So for instance, if you receive fake news where someone is posing to be someone else, perhaps a voice recording pretending to be someone famous or a politician or a civil servant, etc., then there is a provision for that. But at the moment, the architecture as it stands is 505 for all generic fake news, 295A and 153A for communal fake news. I'll just briefly tell you about how we are actually leveraging that on the ground in Bid. Bid actually has the distinction of having the highest number of cases of actions taken against fake news during the COVID crisis in the state of Maharashtra. We have a social media monitoring cell that monitors Facebook groups as well as that monitors WhatsApp groups as well as Facebook across the district. And I'm sorry, can you not hear me? Okay. So that you do the monitoring of WhatsApp groups as well as Facebook through hashtag searches and through trending searches. And then on that basis, the person is identified and we register complaints against the person without waiting for an actual complainant to come and file an FIR. It's filed from on behalf of the police itself, because it can lead to a law and order breakout. After that, we also take a good behavior bond from the person under section 107 or 110 of the CRPC, which is basically a bond that is taken by an executive magistrate to ensure that the person does not repeat this again. And that we have found to be extremely effective. So after this, we also have a heightened level of surveillance against the person. That's how the law, legal architecture is, how it's playing out in the field.
Not bad.
Okay, Rahul is having some. Pankaj ji, one last word about what you would want to tell, जो कुछ पीछे रह गया हो, अगर आप बोलना चाहें, before we wrap up. Rahul, I think you're audible. Yes, Pankaj. Unmute yourself, please.
जी, मैं सबको सिर्फ एक वो बोलते हैं ना, छोटा सा मंत्र देता हूँ. भाई, आप सीधी सी बात है, फॉरवर्डेड मैसेज को फॉरवर्डेड मत करो. और सबसे बड़ी बात है, जो आपके सीनियर्स हैं, जो अंकल्स हैं, आंटीज हैं, उनको बोलो कि फॉरवर्डेड मैसेज फॉरवर्ड ना करे. व्हाट्सएप कोई न्यूज़पेपर नहीं है, कोई न्यूज़ का सोर्स नहीं है.
Rahul, you're audible. I can hear you.
No, not at all.
Yes, जी, पंकज.
जी, तो बस एक छोटी सी बात है, ब्रेक द फेक चेन. आप फेक चेन तोड़ सकते हैं, सिंपल सी बात है। आप हर सिटीजन को ये
I'm not
करना
getting the
चाहिए
audio.
कि फॉरवर्डेड मैसेज को फॉरवर्ड नहीं करना चाहिए, और अपने सारे सीनियर्स को बोलना चाहिए, अंकल्स एंड आंटीज घर में सबको, कि जो मैसेज उनको फॉरवर्ड रिसीव्ड आता है वो फॉरवर्ड ना करे, और जिस पे लिखा रहता है कि फॉरवर्डेड एज रिसीव्ड वो तो बिल्कुल भी ना करे।
Right. So, anything else that you'd want to add, Harsh? One last minute, or Mir, one last maybe words of wisdom based on your experience on the
So
ground.
based on what we've seen so far, I would say that it is this is a problem that has sort of come up. It has taken us by surprise. It's a very recent phenomenon, and we need to be very clear that it's become such a problem because all parts of society are sort of part of the problem. So for a solution, also you will need all parts of society to be part of the solution as well. So that's why I just want to repeat what Rahul ji had said, where he said that you have to have an offline approach as well. You know, just technology is not going to stop it. It will prevent a lot of free speech as well. It will capture, maybe like Harsh said, you know, satire as misinformation. So it's important that everybody speaks up and be prepared that yes, this is not something that's going to be okay in 15 days, 20 days, or a month. It's taken some time to become as pervasive as it is, and it will take that much time for it to go back to its original position. So all of us need to sort of step up and please question things. You should not thrive in an ecosystem where there is misinformation around you. So if you're in a WhatsApp group and you see that misinformation is being shared left, right, and center, you don't have to get into a fight with everybody. You don't have to start trying to show that किसी को नीचा दिखाना की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. You know, you just politely put out a message over there saying this is unverified, best not to share. What I've seen in WhatsApp groups is that if there are 100 people are not involved in misinformation. There are 5 people max who are flooding the group with spam. Rest of the people mostly are silent. If another 2-3 people start speaking up very politely and saying, what's the point of sharing, wasting our time sharing misinformation, and sort of make it, don't meet fake news with silence. That's what I'll say. That if you meet it with silence, then it's going to spread. Just even if you slightly speak up, I think we'd be in a better place.
Right. Thank you all very much for watching this very, very informative and enlightening second edition of Bureaucrats India webinar, where we discussed about disinformation amid COVID. You heard from experts about what it takes to try and curb. We had some wonderful experiences from very bright IAS and IPS officers, plus Pankaj, who is the founder of SM Hoax Clear, one of India's fact-checking site and handle. As we can make out, this problem is big, and therefore we thought it important to trigger a discussion, have a discussion, another round of discussion. One dialogue may not be enough. We shall have to do many more such dialogues. I'm very happy on behalf of Team Bureaucrats India. I thank all the attendees. Agunandan.
I can't hear. You can see the video, but I can't. I'm not getting the audio of the panel.
Listening to us and sharing your feedback. Many of these questions, I'm sure, were answered by these officers directly. We shall come back with yet another edition of Bureaucrats India webinar. Thank you so much for watching. Good night and enjoy your dinner. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night, everybody.